I'm here today with Robin J. Carter, who's a graduate of the University of Chicago, a diplomat and licensed independent clinical social worker. Most importantly, Robin strives to help individuals align their physical, emotional, and spiritual natures with God's divine nature through three unique disciplines of balancing their bioenergy fields, grounding energetically to the earth in God's love, and connecting directly with Yahweh, God the Father, through Yeshua, Jesus. We're here today to talk about the grounding exercise that was mentioned in the introduction. Tell us about that.
Well, I've been teaching these three disciplines for about 25 years to people all over the planet. And the first discipline is one I borrowed from and reworked a little bit. I first learned about the marching from Dr. Flanagan, a research physicist, and he had learned it from Dr. Sheldon Deal, a chiropractor who was the former president of the American Academy of Applied Kinesiology out of Tucson. And that was way back in the 70s and 80s. The reason that particular discipline is the foundational first discipline, which is actually called the cross-crawl energy lock exercise. But that's a mouthful, and I prefer just to call it marching. But it's a very specific, special type of marching. Balancing, in my experience, has been probably the most fundamental thing you can do, and it's found in all genuine systems of healing. So whether you're talking about Tai Chi, yoga, Reiki, Jo-Rei, Jinsen Jitsu, homeopathy, acupuncture, prayer, all these systems of healing from the West, from the East, North and South, all at their basis try to affect balancing in our body, in our mind, and in our spirits to some degree. The problem with most systems is that balancing is very temporary. This particular exercise, which I call the first discipline, the cross-crawl energy lock exercise, marching for short, does something very special. It enables most of the energy circuits in the body to achieve a profound state of balance. Not a perfect state of balance, but profound in the sense that the balancing will last 4 to 6 hours no matter what, unless the person experiences a major trauma, like somebody hitting them in the face, a loved one they find out has passed away, something that is a shock to the system physically, emotionally, or mentally. But other than that, something that's traumatic, you will not be weakened energetically in most of the circuits in the body. The amazing thing about that is that there's, if you will, not a long philosophy behind this system of marching. It doesn't depend on somebody's belief system. One just does it, and lo and behold, the circuits are in this profound state of balance for 4 to 6 hours. So someone needs to practice this 4 times a day when they get up in the morning, somewhere around lunchtime, somewhere around dinner time, and of course, just before bed. You want that 4 to 6 hour time frame between the marching. So once people are in that state of balance, we begin to attract to us what we need automatically, and we begin to let go, release those things that we no longer need to teach us.
I have Sherry Smith with us today, and she's going to be part of the demonstration on the marching exercise. Sherry?
Hi, thank you for inviting me to this. And Again, my name is Sherry Smith, and I am a nurse practitioner. I work in an oncology practice, and I'm here with Robin to learn how to march.
Learning the first discipline, the cross crawl energy lock exercise, marching, is a little bit complex to begin with, but like driving a car, it's quite simple once you learn it. So what I'm going to do with Sherry is teach her how to march regularly, and that is the regular march. Because when we march, it's like walking, like this, except you're walking in place, like this, okay? So marching is like walking in place, if you will. We're not going to learn this special way of marching, the cross-crawl energy lock exercise, until we learn a few other little items. So those items are our arms and our legs need to be positioned and exercised or used in a particular way. In the bioenergy field of our body, we have a right side which is masculine and a left side which is feminine, and there is a dividing line down the middle. So with our legs and our arms, we do not want to cross the center line in this particular first discipline. There is another form of balancing that is called the Brain Gym from California. I believe that's where it started many years ago in the 70s or 80s. And it's a very good system, but it does not produce this profound balancing. So when we use our arms, we want to keep, when we're swinging and marching our arms, we want to keep the forearm and the upper arm at about a 90-degree angle. So it is moving like, if you will, a piston. It doesn't straighten out. It keeps that position, okay, from the front to the back. You also want to keep it next to your torso. And you don't want to move your torso back and forth, because when you do, you'll cross that center line. So the arms essentially are marching this way, moving this way. And you want to have a loose fist, very relaxed, and you want to bring your fist up just a little above your head. Obviously, if you bring it too far, the arm straightens out. So it'll look pretty much like this. Okay? It's real simple. So you want to try that, Sherry?
Okay.
So it's just,
90 degrees.
Yep.
And
so you want to relax, and you want to move those arms, and you don't want to stop. One of the things about the marching, all parts of our arms and our legs want to be continuously moving like flowing water. Okay? The same thing with our knees and our legs. We want to bring, if you can, without pain, bring the knees up to 90 degrees and not cross the center line. Okay? Now, some people do that, and that's fine, but you don't know what's going on behind the camera right now. Anyway, when you're marching with your legs, you want to bring them straight ahead. Now, what some people tend to do, and they're not cognizant of it, is they tend, instead of bringing the knee up, they bring their leg back. See the foot going up? So you want to bring your knee up and keep it straight ahead. So why don't you try that? And of course, as there's pain, you only want to go up until you feel the pain. Don't go that far. So you want to be very gentle with all these, movements. So when we march regularly, like walking, we start and it's opposite fist up with the opposite knee up. So when we're marching, okay, why don't you face the camera so people can see?
just regular marching?
Yes, regular marching. Good. Now keep doing that. As you're watching Sherry do this, every time she lifts her left hand or arm up, her left hemisphere is firing across the corpus callosum into the right hemisphere. Simultaneously, every movement of her right arm is firing from the right hemisphere across the corpus callosum to the left hemisphere. Same thing with the legs. This crossing is why it's called the cross-crawling of, of the exercise, of the title. Thank you, Sherry. And this is what a baby, when they're 8, 10, 12, 14 months, needs to learn, even earlier, maybe 6 months, 5 months, is to learn to crawl. When they do that, it helps the brain develop that kind of synchronicity, and it causes a balancing in the system of the young child or baby as they, develop. The children or the kids that don't learn to crawl before they walk often have issues. So this is helping correct that for those of us that didn't learn to crawl before we walked. Okay. So that thing we need to remember then is not to cross the center line, keep the right angle, bring our knees up to 90 degrees if we can, or as far as you can without pain. And the same thing with our arms, bringing it up a little higher than our head. All right? So that's that. Now when you learn this discipline, this first discipline, we need to know your eye dominance. Someone can be right-footed, someone can be right-handed, they can be left-eye dominant, or vice versa. Most people have the same dominance on the same side of their body. One isn't better than another, but we need for this to find out what the highest neurological dominance is, and that's our eye dominance. So what I'm going to do with Sherry is I'm going to have her look at me through her hands with a little circle or triangle about 1 inch high. So right now I'm looking at the camera, at you, and I'm going to bring my hands to my eye, and you'll see that you're looking at my right eye, because that's the way I'm focusing on the camera, okay? I'm going to have Sherry look at the camera, and I'm going to have her extend her arms out, make a little triangle about 1 inch high. Both eyes are wide open. She's looking at the camera lens, and I'm going to have her pull her hands towards her face until they touch. And for her, I want you as an audience to see which eye she's looking at you and what eye you're seeing. And that's Sherry's left eye. Okay? So for you at home or in the clinic or in a hospital or wherever you may be, the way you can do this is simply look at yourself in the mirror. So if you get confused, if you're the mirror, I'm looking in the mirror at myself and I'm looking at my right eye. If you do this, you'll see which eye dominance you are. Okay? Next, I want to show Sherry how to put this together. When I first started doing this 25, 30 years ago, actually about 30 some years ago, I would just teach this, they would learn it, and whether it was individual or in a group, and they would learn it, and then they would go home, and they would either forget it, they'd turn their head at the wrong time, at the wrong direction, or, which even worse, is they would, instead of cross-crawling, they would homolateral crawl, which is this. And who on earth walks like this? Nobody. So
I think John Wayne maybe walked like that.
Well, Pilgrim. So, in this discipline, this first discipline, which is more than just an exercise, we need to have that cross-crawling in the opposite configuration, but we need to put it together in such a way that it's coordinated with the eye dominance. When I first started doing this for quite a few years, people would come back and they would be doing it incorrectly. So about 20 years ago, I put together a simple little stance, which I call the stork stance, based on, like in the martial arts and Tai Chi and Qigong, many of their movements are based on animals, like the stork, the snake creeps down. There's many different animals that they use in the martial arts. This one I call the stork stance, and it's a 5-step process. So for Sherry, I want her to learn all 5 steps, and that will put her into the position of marching. Before we do that, I have shown you that I have right eye dominance. So I'm going to show you what the actual marching looks like, the cross-crawl energy lock exercise for me, because I'm right eye dominant. So I will say, number 1, I'm right eye dominant. Number 2, I put up the opposite fist. In this case, it's my left fist. Number 3, Well, in number 2, this becomes an anchor for the next 2 steps. Step 3 would be the opposite elbow back from the anchor. This is my left hand, or left arm. Step 4, my right, the opposite knee is up. And step 5, I'm looking straight ahead at you. So this is the stork stance. And then, once I'm in that stork stance, I begin to march. Okay? I bring my fists up, I relax, and I always ask people to have a little smile in their heart, not necessarily on their face, but on their heart. You want this to be slow, continuous, fluid, relaxed, gentle, and silent. Okay? All those things. When I do this, this is 1 round. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You don't turn like this. This is for the camera. 8, 9, whoops, now I got it off. 10, 11, 12, and the last 2, 13, 14. The reason we do 14 is we want to make sure that you've done 13 complete rounds of marching, okay? With turning the head 90 degrees to the neurological dominant side and bringing it back to the center. And 13 in physics is a critical mass number. But some people who do this, the first time they do it, it's not exactly perfect, if you will. So we do it 14 just to make sure. So, with Sherry, she's left eye dominant, and let's go ahead and practice the stork stance. So number 1, what do you say?
I am left eye dominant,
Okay, and so what's number 2?
and then the opposite hand arm goes up.
Okay, and you want to face the camera.
Okay.
Good. And okay, so this is her anchor in the second step of the stork stance. Then the next 2 steps, why don't you demonstrate that? Number 3?
Do the opposite hand back.
Correct.
Okay.
Step 4 is
The knee.
the opposite knee up. And step 5,
Is looking to the left.
no, looking straight ahead.
Okay.
Straight ahead. And then she begins to march 14 times. So go ahead and start. 1, okay now, a little faster. 2, 3, good. 4, 5, she's going to do 14. 6, 7, she's smooth. 8, silent. 9, continuous. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Very good, Sherry. Excellent. Excellent. Now she's in a state of balance that if she's never done this before, she's in a state of profound balance she's never been in before. We can demonstrate this kinesiologically. We can demonstrate this with laser acupuncture machines or with other devices that will measure the bioenergy field and show you that normal stressors, be it sugar, be it anger, be it synthetic clothing, be it a wide range of things that can alter our bioenergy field, our emotions, they will not go out of balance for 4 to 6 hours after you've done this. In the military and in sports, they do something that's very unbalancing when they do this specific exercise, which is homolateral, and that's called a jumping jack. So I want you to do a jumping jack like this, all right? And I want you to face the camera, okay? Continuous, there you go. Now, this is homolateral crawling. It's the same thing as doing this. It's very unbalancing, all right? And we can prove this scientifically. So, in this state, why don't you put up your right arm, make a fist, you're right-handed, Any shoulder injuries?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna press down with one finger. I want you to resist as hard as you can. Okay, go ahead. Okay. She didn't have much, so she was fairly weak. Now what I want you to do is march regularly without turning your head to the neurological dominant side. So go ahead and face the camera.
So the stork stance?
Just go ahead and
Oh,
march.
okay, okay.
You don't have to turn your head. Now I'm gonna have her march 10, 12 times. This is the same effect as walking, swimming, cross-country skiing. This is cross-crawling, okay? It's what we learn to do when we're babies. She's doing it as an adult, and she's not sucking her thumb. All right, now we're gonna test her. Put up your right arm, make a fist, one finger, resist. Okay, I would say she's at least 50, 60% stronger from that balancing in a normal fashion, okay? But I want you to raise your hands. I'm not going to touch her. I'm just going to bring my energy through her energy in a very specific way. Put your arm down. Now put your arm up, make a fist, one finger, resist. Okay. She lost about 80 to 90% of her strength. I've done this with the arm wrestling champ of the United States. Trust me, it works. So you were in a state of balance when you marched normally. Then, well, first of all, you homolateral crawled and you were weak. Then you cross crawled normally without turning the head. You were strong, which is what we just saw. Now I pass my energy through your energy and you were weak. What I want you to do is march one more time regularly, naturally, normally. Oh, now she's homolateral crawling. That happens to the best of us. I've had martial artists get this backwards. I've had gymnasts get this backwards. I've had many types of healthcare practitioners, gymnasts and so forth, and they can get it perfect, but they can get off real easily. That's why I teach the stork stance. Okay, let's test you one more time. Resist hard as you can, and she's strong again. But we could present sugar in her bioenergy field. We could think crummy thoughts about Sherry. We could put on synthetic clothing. A wide range of things can weaken us, all right? Well, let's not do that. Let's instead have you do the first discipline correctly, which is the cross-crawl energy lock exercise. So if you look at the audience and out loud, go through the stork stance. So number one.
I'm left eye dominant,
Number two.
so the opposite arm up in a 90-degree angle,
Good. Number three, that's the anchor.
the anchor, and then the opposite hand
Goes back,
goes
elbow
back.
goes back.
elbows goes back, and that same leg, the knee goes up.
Opposite knee goes up and look straight ahead. Then you begin to march. 1, 2, and notice she's turning her whole head, not just her eyes. Some people will turn just their eyes. You want to be sure and turn that head to the 90 degrees as far as you can. That's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, she really only needed to do 13, but I always have people do 14 just in case the first one isn't perfect. All right? Now let's do the same kinesiological muscle testing. Put up your right arm again, make a fist, and I'm going to use 2 fingers, and you're very strong. Now I'm going to pass my hands, go ahead, arms up, like this, and this time put the arm down. Now I'm going to yell at her, which kind of they use in the martial arts called Kia. You ready? Here we go. Ha! Okay, now put up your right arm, 2 fingers, resist as hard as you can. Ready? And there's no weakening. So there's many, many forms. I know you look surprised,
Yeah.
even though I yelled at you when you were shocked. But your physiology did not respond the way everybody else's would because you have accomplished doing the first discipline.
Oh, okay.
That's the reason. It's put your energy circuits into a state of profound balance for 4 to 6 hours. That's why we need to do this at least 4 times a day with that spacing of breakfast, lunch, dinner, before you go to bed. Okay? Now, here's the things to remember. You want to do it slowly, but not too slow. You want to do it smoothly and continuously. You don't want to march and stop like this. No, you want it to be continuous, okay? And you want it to be silent and relaxed, and always have a little smile in your heart, okay? Okay, so now we're going to do the stork stance. She's going to be turning her head to the left. I'm going to be turning my head to the right, so our arms and legs will be the opposite, okay? So here we go. Number 1, which eye dominant are we? Number 2, the opposite fist goes up, which becomes the anchor. Number 3, the opposite elbow goes back. Number 4, the opposite knee goes up. And number 5, we're looking straight ahead and trying to keep our balance. And now we begin to march. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Excellent. Very good.
Thank you.
She's a good student.